Hello there, it's Jay here from Jay's Vintage Junk, and today, well actually this isn't actually the video I was planning to make today. My friend Andy over at Vintage Electronics Repair, he gave me it's a Philips like CD jukebox kind of unit. It's like basically what you do is you put your CDs in the top of it and it records them down to a hard drive, and then you can, it's like a media center type of thing. But it's quite an early one. It's from the early 2000s. I think it's from about 2004. It's quite a nice, interesting unit actually. And it has like a satellite unit which you can put in another room, and it connects to it wirelessly, and you can play the music between them and things like that. And Andy's actually done a video about it on his channel, Vintage Electronics Repair. If you might want to go and check that out before you watch this. I don't know. Well, not this video, but the video I'm going to do on that unit. Anyway. Andy basically got it working, and then he thought he'd killed it when he was putting it back together. He put a screw. We've all done it. I know I've definitely done it. He put a screw for a couple of wires, and he thought he'd shorted something and blown the power supply or damaged something. And he gave it me. He just said, "You fiddle with it." Anyway, it turns out that wasn't actually the problem. It was yet another. If you watch his video, you know he found a lot of bad capacitors in it. Anyway, I found another one that had gone. And I replaced that and actually managed to get it running again. Not completely, the amplifier's still dead in it. I've noticed quite a lot of them 470 UF capacitors in the actual amplifier section, but unfortunately I've completely run out of the damn things. So I've had to order some capacitors in, so I'll actually do a proper video. Well, I've done part of the video already. Basically, when the capacitors come in, I'm actually going to do a decent video on that, because like I say, it's quite an interesting unit. It's interesting for the time it was made. Apologies I got also for not putting the video out for a little bit. I think it was about 10 days or so now. Basically, I've been working on the new studio space and utility room. As I mentioned before, I am struggling a little bit for money at the moment, especially with Christmas and all that coming up. Not that I'm a big Christmas person, but you know, there's always expenses at Christmas. And also I've had to change my vehicle. I've had car problems. I'll go into that anyway. Like I said, this is just going to be a bit of a rambly video. I've had some vehicle issues. I've had to change my vehicle. I've got something fun. I've got something quite fun. Yeah, and it's actually it means I can actually shift things and move stuff. But anyway, with my new vehicle, actually, I actually managed to get a load of. It was a big old pine double bed. I actually got it for firewood for my wood burner. But when I actually looked at it, there's a lot of good pieces of timber in it that I could actually use, and I've actually made the stand for my like Belfast sink out of this old bed, and there's lots of timber I managed to reclaim from it which I can use for some of the shelving supports and things in the actual studio. So you know, that project is moving on. I'm going to probably work on the utility part first, get that functional, and then I can actually work on the studio space in there and get that functional. Like I say, it's not as I really wanted it, but with the very limited budget I've got at the moment, I'm just going to try and make it so I've actually got a functional space I can use, and I'm not having to work on this little bench I've got up here. This really is where I like to have some of my vintage consoles and things set up for actually use, but so I'm struggling really using the attic as workspace, so I moved it back down to here because it was a bit more of a functioning space. I do sometimes struggle with the ladder going up into the attic every now and again. Well, anyway, what I thought we'd do in this video, basically while I was down there I was clearing some boxes that I have had in the garage, and they're basically full of old car spares and bits and bats like that. But while I was going through them, I found that in the bottom of one of them, and we've got an old this is an Eveready it's an Eveready Skylark radio. Now I must have actually had this running at some point. The only reason I say that is when I have a look in the back of it, and this is a naughty for doing this, but it actually got a battery in it, and if you look, that's an Eveready Pro Cell. So I'm pretty sure that I have had this running at some point in the past, because the company I used to work for, when I worked in event management, we went through hundreds of these things a week. And generally, when you're working in that kind of environment, we use these in things like our radio mics and some of our camera intercoms and things like that. They all use PP3 batteries. So we went through, you know, lots of them. When you work in, like I say, in a professional environment like that, generally speaking, apart from a few that you'll keep back for just testing and rehearsals and stuff like that, you always use brand new batteries actually on the events. So we end up with lots of part used batteries. So I always used to have lots and lots and lots of PP3 9-volt batteries in, you know, for any little radios and stuff that I was fiddling about with. So I'm pretty certain that this has at least worked sometime in the past. Obviously it doesn't switch on now, and God knows how long it has been dormant. But I thought what we'd do in this video is just have a play with this, see if we can actually see if it works. If not, see if we can actually get it working. We're not going to restore it or anything, not in this video, but it would be nice to see if we could get this to play. I might even use it while I'm working down in the studio. I have been using that Cosa Melody Maker that we got running, but it does need a new output valve. It needs a new EL42 or an EL41. It's although it was showing, like you saw in that video when I was showing my CT160, it was showing really good emission, but it goes, after it's been running for half an hour or so, it does start going into grid current. I mean, the valve is basically knackered. So I've been using my Makita radio for the last few days, but if we can get this playing, I might start using that for a little bit. Anyway, I'll pause the video and I'll get us down on the radio and we can have a look at it. So back in a sec. Okay, there we go. You can see it a bit closer now, and it's quite a nice, neat little radio, this. And to be honest, considering it's been banging around in the bottom of a box of car spares for a while, it doesn't actually look in terrible condition. The plastic's still in reasonable condition. Sadly, it is missing its handle. It should have a leather strap around there. I'm guessing it's medium wave and long wave, although the wave change switch does look a little worse for the wear. So let's have another look inside. We've got provision for a external aerial and headphones. Currys for factory. Can you see that on the? I don't know if you can make that out, but we've got Currys, which is a UK, or was at least a UK electrical retailer. For factory fresh batteries, it says change your batteries when the sound becomes distorted. Always switch off before changing the battery. The battery lasts longer if the set is played quietly. Anyway, let's pull out this. Oh wow! Oh, that's cool. I didn't realise that. Wow! It actually has its headphone. Check that out. So that is basically, that's worn behind the ear, and then that just presses up against the ear. But it actually does have. You don't often see the little headphones. And it has like a little compartment built into the back for it. There, just for the headphone. That is really cool. And see, it's actually got it in there. I didn't realise that. That's quite nice. That. Let's put that back in there. Don't want to lose that. It's quite a tight fitting, that little. Oh yeah, it does just about go in if you do that there. Well, I think you have to bend that. There we are. That's it. That's it. That's shoved back in there now. Right, let's get this battery out. Right, you can tell this has been out of action for. Yeah, that's. That's not good. the negative connector is actually welded into the battery here. Let's see if I can break the battery away, see if we can save the connector. This is why you don't leave batteries in radios. And I can't blame anyone but myself here, unfortunately, because it's snapped off, but I don't think that would... We'll see if we can get it out. Might still be usable. There we are. Not in a very good condition, that. No, I don't think we're going to be reusing that. We'll have to find a different battery snap connector for it. But I mean, that Pro Cell there, so that was dated, I don't know if that's going to make out on camera. Can you see that there? That's March 2014. So yeah, that's probably, you know, 2014, 2015 is probably when this radio was last actually used. I can't actually recall it, but I have far too many radios. I really do. The case actually, apart from it's a shame the strap's missing, but I could easily make a new strap. The case itself's actually quite nice. It's all cardboard case. The entire case is just made out of cardboard with like this leatherette covering on it. I wonder if it actually still works. Let's fire it up to the bench supply and see if it actually does anything. I've got some test leads here. And get them connected up to the bench supply, and we'll give it 9 volts and we'll see what it does. Onto there, we're onto volts. Let's crank that up to about 9 volts. About there. Oops, and my glasses have fallen off my nose again. There we go. Get them back on my nose. Go. That's black to black and red to red. There we are. So we've got two live leads here. Let's go red on there. Connect black to there. Hopefully that's making contact. Let's see if this radio is going to do anything at all. Well, a few crackles. Oh! Little bit of something. Not very much. Try the other. It's working. I think we might have a dodgy volume control there. I'd expect it to try and pick a few more stations up than that, because it's got a good 9 volts. It's not as though it's running on a reduced supply. It's very deaf. Yeah, we're getting like classic, I think it's like a couple of the classic stations, and that's about it. I think that's Talk Sport. And one of the classic stations, that's about it. And the volume control's a bit on the iffy side. But it does actually still work. That's quite amazing. I think what we'll do is we'll pop it out of this cabinet, and we'll have a bit of a look at it, and we'll see if we can see anything obvious. See if there's any dried up electrolytics in there. See what state the capacitors in general are in. and just see if we can perhaps get it to play a little bit better than it is. But I mean, it's I'm actually surprised. It doesn't seem to play too bad. Let's get that dial pointer off. You've got to be very, very careful getting these dial pointers off. Don't just leave her like that from one side. If you're going to have to leave her, you really want to do it from two sides. We'll get a couple of things in, and let's just see if we can just ease that control knob off. Get a couple of wedges in. Basically just try to wedge it up, and we'll just see if we can just ease that knob off. There we go. There we are. Lovely. Got that off without damaging it. It's pretty filthy in here. But this video is not about, like I said, it's not about restoring this thing. It's just about seeing if we can get it to play perhaps a little bit better than it currently is. Alright, we'll get this. So we'll get in here, and I must say this is very, very cheaply constructed. Like I said, the case is nothing but just basically cardboard with a leatherette finish on it. Though that looks like it might be real. No, it's not. Again, it's like a faux suede they put on the back there. So we can get this screw out, and hopefully we can get the radio out of this cabinet. There we go. Getting that back in is going to be fun. Right, let's lift that over there. Let's see if we can get the radio chassis out of the cabinet now. I have a feeling that all that was holding it in, can't see any other screws holding it in. Unless there's one in that top corner there. Is that, what's that holding to? No, that's not holding to anything either. Dear me. Oh, how on earth are you meant to get this thing out of here? I might have to just try undoing them two screws there. Let's see if we can find the appropriate screwdriver bit. Let's try you there. You look about right. Oop. I do need to get some new glasses that actually stay on my face. See, I don't need to wear glasses for day-to-day seeing. I only need to wear them for reading and close-up work like this. In fact, I do need to go to the opticians and get my eyes retested, and no, it wasn't those two. They must hold something to do with the wave change switch. Let's put them back in so we don't disturb anything. I won't be surprised if it's something daft and we have to remove the PCB and leave the tuning condenser actually connected to the front of the case or something like that. Let's try that. Let's try disconnecting. Let's try taking these three screws out which hold the tuning condenser to the PCB, and see if that is going to get us anywhere. Oh, saying, yeah, while I'm doing this, about my new vehicle. Basically, I've been driving round in a... Oops, there we go. There we go. So we could have probably left that variable tuning dial on the front. Right, we're out there. This is fiddly. This is very, very fiddly. Yeah, you'd think that that would come out with the rest of the radio, but it doesn't. Right, I think I need to take that off there, because I think the tuning condenser is actually connected to that. This is not, doesn't look like it's going to be, it's an easy set to service. It's not well designed from the service perspective. Can we get it out this time? The problem we're having is there's quite a long ferrite rod on here, and it's getting bound up with that tuning condenser. I don't want to force it because I risk damaging the ferrite rod. Well, not the rod, the winding that's on the end of it. One of the problems that, yeah, there's a wire there I'm going to have to desolder before I can even get the damn thing out. This is not well designed for, like I said, for servicing. Fortunately it's only one, so we know where it goes, but there we go. Still not coming out, come on. So short, that wire, so there's no way of getting the actual right there. Oh, come on. Dear me, come on. Now what's holding it now? Right, there's a black wire as well. Let's see if we can disconnect that black wire there. I mean, this is I can't understand how that can't come out. Ah, is that a screw thread or a... Damn it. Sorry, I've lost my glasses again. Just 1 second. There we are. I can't tell whether that's a pop rivet or the end of a screw. It's the end of a screw by the look of it. So that is screwed in place. Which means to actually get that out on the PCB, you've got to take this front grill off. Oh, they've designed that nicely, haven't they? Yeah, that is a really, really, really poor design. Because I bet you any money, if we try and get that front grille off, these will break. They usually do when you try and get them off. So, let's see what else we can do. We can disconnect. That's just a ground, isn't it? Right, okay. These are some of the things we have to put up with, folks, when we work on these radios, especially stuff like this. It was probably intended for like a 5 or 10 year life, and then was intended to be replaced. And here we are over 50 years later, and we're still fiddling with the things. Right, that's that green that I got disconnected before. Let's see if we can get this black off, which is just a ground. off the tuning condenser if we can. Come on, off you come. There we go, that's free. Right, now let's see if we can get this PCB out of here. There we go. Now what else have we got connected? I've got the other green right down there, which goes up to, right, we'll get that disconnected as well, and then we can actually have a look at the PCB. So unfortunately there's only 3 connections going to that tuning condenser, and they're all fairly easy to know where they go. There we are, that's off. So we've got that green there goes to the bottommost tag down there. That green there goes to that point there, and that black there is our ground, so that's not too bad. We can easily get them back where they need to go. Let's have a look. We've got Hunt's mould seal capacitors in here, which are never good. They do tend to cause issues. And we've got the old OC series transistors, so this thing's got a fair bit, you know, it's very early 60s, showing the OC series. After that they tended to use the AF series, like the AF117s and things like that, which are nowhere near as reliable as what these use. I'm tempted to actually get my ESR tester out and see what some of these capacitors are like, the ones we can easily get to anyway. In fact, it'd be dead easy just to swap them out for something while we're in here. See if that will make any improvements. These Hunt's capacitors love to short circuit as well, the Hunt's mould seals. Generally speaking, if I find a wax paper capacitor in an old transistor radio, like these ones here, wax paper capacitors like those, I don't usually bother changing them because it's very rare they actually give much issues. The Hunt's mould seals, on the other hand, they can be quite problematic. We will probably just test that with the tester, at least to make sure it's not dead short. In fact, I've got that little Micronta tester that I got at Golborne. I wonder if we can use that. Let me get you up and perhaps zoomed out a little bit. Oops, that's the wrong way. There we go. I've got that Micronta tester. That should be good enough on a high resistance range, just to test to see whether we've got a load of leakage in that there capacitor. And it's actually it's good enough for testing the electrolytics in there as well, because all we want to really know is, are they short, are they open circuit? That's really the only tests we need to do on them at the moment. That's one lead, that's 2 leads. Is that a better lead? That's a better lead there. 1. 2 of them. Right. Let's get these connected up. Anyway, I was saying about my car fun. I've been driving a Citroen C3. I had a Vauxhall Agila I bought really cheap when my X-Trail, basically my X-Trail, part way through the pandemic, the engine went, well, the injector pump went in it, and it wasn't worth putting a new injector pump in it. The car, because we could run without an MOT through lockdown, and my MOT expired pretty much as the lockdown started and that rule came in, I ran round most of lockdown time with no MOT on my car, and my car was rapidly deteriorating. The exhaust fell off, and because it was a turbo diesel, it didn't actually sound that loud, and I didn't actually bother putting a new exhaust on it. So I did actually buy a new exhaust for it, and shortly before I put it on, like I said, the injector pump went in it, and it needed that many more. There was suspension components starting to fail, and other components needing replacement, and it was only a cheap car. It wasn't worth spending any money, the amount of money that it would have needed to get right. So I scrapped it, and I bought a cheap, and I do mean really cheap, Vauxhall Agila for 300 quid. And I was driving that round up until a couple of months ago. Actually, up until last month, I've been driving that. I even got it through an MOT. And right, let's see if this Hunts here is short. That just shows you what these Hunts capacitors are like. In fact, we'll whip that out of circuit, but that's looking pretty bad. Anyway, as I was saying, so I've been driving that little Agila, and it were fine. But then a friend of mine mentioned that, and it was coming up to its MOT expired a couple of days ago actually, on that Agila. Anyway, so I knew it was going to need some work for its MOT. It had been involved in a small front end shunt. And I weren't sure how happy the MOT station was with my my repairs I'd done on the car. Basically, I bent the bonnet back into the rough shape of a bonnet, put a headlight back in it from a scrapyard, and put it back on the road after it had a bump. But like I said, I weren't. Oh, actually, when I take it out of circuit, that is not showing. Let's go down. I'm actually really surprised that's not showing any leakage. In fact, what we can do, let's give it some voltage to. So that basically on the tester isn't showing any leakage at all. What we can do, let's put some voltage across the capacitor. Not a lot. And put some DC across the cap. That's the wrong way around, just 1 second. There we go. We've put some DC across the capacitor. Let's bring it up. You can see we do have leakage. It's not actually a lot of leakage, to be fair, but we do have leakage on that little Hunts capacitor. It's probably actually, I mean, it's quite surprising, because usually them Hunts mould seals are pretty short, and as soon as you put any appreciative voltage on them, if they weren't shorted, they will short. But that one actually seems alright. It seems fine. It's even with, over what it's going to see. It's only ever going to see 9 volts. And I just put about, I put about 12 volts in it then. And like I said, there was a tiny bit of leakage, but not an appreciable amount. So and like I said, this isn't a restoration. I just want to see if we can get it playing a bit better, a little bit better than it was. Amazing actually, for a Hunts mould seal, the case on it isn't cracked, and that's one of the things with these. The cases, when the cases crack on them, they allow moisture into the capacitor, and that's when they start breaking down and leaking and causing problems. There we go. Sneak that back into the board. There we go. fact, while we're in here, we might as well spray that switch with some contact cleaner, which I can't find just now. In fact, just bear with me a second. I think you're going to have to bear with me a second, folks, and I'll just go and see if I can find my contact cleaner, and then we'll get right back to this. So back in a sec. Okay, found it. Right. In fact, we won't use that just yet. We'll just go through a couple more of these capacitors. How is that speaker held in place? We've got some kind of... right, I see now. So one there, one there. So we might want to pull the speaker out to be able to inspect in there as well. Anyway, let's check. Let's check this capacitor here, 160 UF. All I'm concerned about are shorts. I'm not really bothered about the value on the capacitors at the moment. That's something we do when we actually got the radio fully working. Let's have a look here. Now let's see what this does. See, if the capacitor was good as it charges, you should see the resistance drop down, but as you can see there, it's just staying exactly where it is. Let's try pulling that capacitor. So I'm pretty sure that a lot of the electrolytics in this are going to be bad. There we go, pull that free. Let's connect on. Oh, we're still on that side there. We can put that on the lifted side. Oh no, look. You can see that drop in there. But there, as we can see, now that capacitor's pretty shorted. Yeah, capacitor isn't much good now. It's basically acting like a resistor. In fact, let's find a good capacitor that I can show you what it should do on an analog meter. I had some boards around here. I've been salvaging some parts off. What have I done with them? There we go. So I've got something on it we can use. That has. I've got some scrap here. My favourite source of just random capacitors for when I'm messing about is old skyboxes. You can get quite a lot of these. You find them everywhere, old skyboxes, and they have lots of useful value of capacitor in them. And generally speaking, they seem to use a reasonable quality of capacitor. Let's see what this is. So we've got 47 UF at 50 volts here, so let's try this. I'll just show you what a decent capacitor will do. I'm connected up the same. And you can see that, it dropped right down. It's basically dropped down to nothing there. So that's what a good electrolytic capacitor will do when you've got an analog meter like this. If you haven't got an actual capacitance tester, this is how they used to do it. So we connect it back up to that capacitor, which is suspect. You see it drop down, but then it stops. There's quite a lot of resistance there. So it's basically very high ESR, that capacitor. So we will have a hunt round on that board, and we'll see if we can find something we can replace that one with. So I will do that, and we will be back in a sec. Okay, we've got the old capacitor out there, and I found that's actually an old Sony video board out of my junk pile. Couldn't find a 160, but we've got a 220 at 10 volts there to replace the 160 at 10 volts. Okay, it'll fit. It's obviously it's a more modern component, and that is an axial, this is a radial, but we can get it to work. So this is not a radial that's ever going to really be of any value or anything. I'm just doing it because it'd be nice to have the radio playing properly. Like I say, we're only picking up a couple of stations weekly, so it certainly is capable of much better performance than that. And I think a lot of it is down to just these electrolytics, which have basically just gone high ESR over the years. They've just dried out. Got one in there. We'll resolder that back on there. I really need to order some new thicker solder. I seem to have run out of the thicker stuff. I've got plenty of the really thin stuff, but I prefer to keep that for working on computers. So we've got that one changed. What else have we got in there electrolytic wise? In fact, there's very, very few capacitors. There's another Hunts mould seal down there next to the speaker. But again, I can't actually see any cracks in it. I can see two more electrolytics. It does look like we'll have to take the speaker out to access them, which is a bit of a shame. I was hoping I'd get away without doing that, but it doesn't look like it. Anyway, I was getting back to my car fun. So I had the Agila, and like I said, that was getting on its last legs. And a friend of mine mentioned that his son's wife's car, she'd basically stopped driving it. She really wanted an automatic, and it was a manual, and it had been sat not being used. It had a few issues with it, and it was sat not being used. And was I interested in it? And it was a Citroen C3 Picasso, and it was an absolute top, and I do mean top of the range C3 Picasso. It was what's known as the Exclusive Plus. It was made for the Citroen's 90th anniversary, so it had everything on it, sat nav, aircon, climate control, you name it, that car had everything on it. So I jumped at the chance, which was a silly mistake really, because I'm a banger motorist and that wasn't a banger car. Right, let's got the speaker out. Anyway, essentially I thought I could fix the problems that the car had. Which was basically, it used to cut out perhaps once a month and come up with a anti-pollution fault, and I knew what the fault was with that. It's the fact that the chap's wife had only ever used the car in the 6 or 7 years she'd had it. They were only the second owner of the car, and all they'd ever used the car for was like half mile stop start journeys. And I know what's wrong with that car. I thought the diesel particulate filter, it's basically modern diesel engines have them, is blocked, and it needs taking out and cleaning out manually. So that's, and there was a bend in the wing where the driver's door didn't fit very well, and a load of paint scratches and average things you get on an older car. But I thought, I can deal with them. And I'll have a really nice car. Anyway, I did a few of the jobs on it. I give the engine a full service, and the engine was brilliant in it. And I was going to order the stuff I needed to clean that diesel particulate unit out, and basically it was drivable, even with that fault. Like I say, it only ever cut out perhaps like once a month or something like that. And these don't want to come out. And I was driving home from a mate's house, and I got on the motorway. I was about a mile away from home, and every light on the dashboard all of a sudden lit up. The engine cut out, ground to a halt on the hard shoulder, and switched everything off and switched back on. And basically what's happened, the car actually runs fine, but the main computer's failed in it. So the power steering won't work, the anti-lock brakes won't work, even the rear parking sensors won't work. Basically every electronic thing, with it being the top of the range car, is everything on the car, basically stopped working. I've got quotes to fix it, and it's just not worth it. That's what you get for buying a car that's a bit out of what you normally drive. Fortunately, I'm not been left really out of pocket by it, but I was left without a vehicle. So I went out and bought a pickup truck. I now own a 2001 Mitsubishi L200. Long wheelbase, single cab pickup truck, and again here we can see we're high ESR. We're very high ESR, so that's another bad one. And what's that one? That is a 64 UF. It doesn't even give us a volt. Oh, 10 volts again. So that's 64 UF. Get away with replacing that with a 47. I know it's a little bit. In fact, we could put 100 in there. Yeah, we'll put 100 in there and go up a little bit. Let's find 100 on this scrap board. So yeah, I now have a what one of my friends keeps referring to as a Taliban taxi. Being that them and Toyota Hiluxes were used much in the Middle East by militia groups and fighting groups. But it is a very good vehicle actually, especially as I believe we're going to have a very severe winter. I don't think we're going to, especially up in this part of the UK, up in the north and the northwest. I don't think we're going to have a very fine winter. I think it's going to be pretty miserable. And one thing about that L200 is it's four-wheel drive. I actually miss driving a four-wheel drive as an everyday vehicle. I do like. I mean, I'd owned it 2 or 3 days, and it was pressed into service at a friend's, pulling tree stumps out, which is something I've not been able to do for a while. So yeah, like I said, I'd literally owned it a couple of days, and it's down at my friend's, pulling tree stumps out. Okay, there we go. So we've got something we can substitute in there. And we'll just show you. Like, so this is off a scrap Skybox. I believe it was a Skybox. I've got quite a few of these boards that I've salvaged over time. And we'll connect this up, and you just watch it. You saw what the meter did before with that bad capacitor. That's where it shot up. You can't even see the screen. Sorry about that. There you go. You'll see. We'll just show you again with a bad capacitor. Okay, this is how to test basically electrolytics when you're working on old radios and you don't have a capacitor meter. You can use an old style analog meter like this. We'll connect the capacitor up, and this is just set on the resistance range. We watch the meter, saw it go up, and you can see it dropping down. Now, in a good capacitor, that should drop right down to 0. As you can see, we're staying around the 200 ohms kind of mark there. So that is not a good capacitor. We've got one here, like I said, I've pulled off that old Skybox PCB. If we connect that up, we watch it drop. It's virtually down to 0. It's not quite down to 0, but it's close enough. We've got a tiny little bit of leakage on it, but it really is not enough to worry about. So that's basically the dirty way of testing electrolytic capacitors. You can't test the actual value of them, but what you can do is determine whether they're high ESR or not. Okay, that was in that way round, wasn't it? Yeah, it was in like that. Big hole in that side, and that is the negative. So we need, where's the new one? There's the new one. Just get that in there. Get the soldering iron. Oops, you can't see what I'm doing. We'll heat that side up and we'll just draw this new capacitor through. There we go, that's in there. There we go. We'll just solder that side in better. That side's not bad actually. There we go. You have to be a bit careful with these old PCBs, trying not to keep the heat on them for too long. They love basically to lift tracks. So we've got that one replaced. I'm pretty sure actually after we've changed these electrolytics out, even when we don't touch any of them old Hunts mold seals, we're going to get a lot more performance out of this radio. I think that's probably the same value there. Let's get that one out if we can figure out which capacitor, which leads they are. So it's that one there, I think it is. Nope. If you're not 100% sure on a board like this, what I do sometimes do is just warm the pads around where you're looking for and just give it a quick rock, and many times you can figure out which one. We are, it's that one there, I think. Don't melt. There we are. Yeah, it is that one. Out you come. Come on, out you come. There we are. That's that side out. Let's see if we can pull him out. There we go. We might as well test it while it's here. What value is that one? That's another 64. That's the negative up there. Connect the positive down there. Have a watch on the meter. Again, that's really is quite leaky. It's got high. Well, when I say leaky, it's high ESR. Let's see what we've got here. That's 22 UF. Let's find another 100 on this board. That's a 10. That's a 10. There we go, that's 100, that'll do. We'll get this off this scrap board. Come on. Nearly off the board. There we are. Just get the excess solder off them legs, but that will do. That's a perfectly suitable replacement. Ooh. I was going to change this one here. So that leg we've already pulled out is the negative. In fact, let's just test this this capacitor we're putting in as the replacement. It's always good, especially when you use, even when you're using new components actually, especially if they're from China, just to double check them and just test them before you actually put them into circuit. And there, as we can see, like I said, this is a reclaimed part, but that's still tons and tons and tons better. That's as good as. That's absolutely fine. Let's get the rest of this. Let's get the rest of this one out. So we know where that leg is. It's there. So I'm pretty sure if I hold this here and I heat that up there. Is it that one? Nope. There it is. It's up there. There we go. It's out. Get the new component ready. We'll get that. Let's get these legs a bit straighter than they are. Again, if you're using brand new components, placing them in the board is a lot easier because you've got much longer legs, but I can't really justify new, plus I'm very short on capacitors at the moment, but I couldn't really justify new components in a radio like this for my own use. If it was a radio I was repairing for someone, obviously I would be using new capacitors, but this is a radio that's just a radio I've got, you know, it's nothing. That leg's in. There we go, that's in now. You can see that now. Just solder that into place. And I think there's only one other I think there's actually only one other electrolytic capacitor on this board, and then we can reassemble the radio at least to a point where we can test it and see whether we've made any improvements. So we've changed that one there, we've changed that one there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. We have got, is that all? No, we've got one more here. Let's get that one out, because I'm pretty sure that'll be just as bad. That's that point there. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with my truck. I mean, it's an old thing. I bought it off a bloke in Buxton in Derbyshire, which is about 20 or so miles away from where I am here. And he'd literally used it for collecting firewood, which is what I'm going to be using it for, and driving to and from work. So it's an old truck. It's like I said, it's a 2001 model, but it's actually only done 95,000 miles in all that time. It's got an interesting history, show it that. Actually, say that it originally belonged to one of the Buxton slaughtermen. It was a slaughterman's truck, so the back of it is actually all lined in aluminium. I mean, I'm not too worried what it's been used for in the past, but that is originally what it was, and it's basically spent its entire life from new in Buxton. The guy I bought it off knew the guy that had owned it previously. He knew the guy that owned it previously to that, and it goes on and on. So it spent its entire life in a very small part of the country. Come on now, you. That side's out. We've actually got a pad here which has started to lift. Got ya. Fortunately, got the thing out. And we have got another. This is just a 10 UF at 25 volts. Let's give that a quick test. I know I've definitely got something I can change that for. Positive on there, neg on there. Oh dear. Make sure the meter's working. My meter just crapped out. Oh. It'd help if I weren't picking up one of the power supply leads and one of the multi-tester leads, you bloody idiot. Right, okay, let's try that again. Positive on that side there. Neg on there. And again, yet another one. We're high ESR on that. Let's pull one off that board that we can stick in there. So this is what I'm just salvaging the capacitors off. I think it's a Skybox. It's something like that. It's either a Skybox or a digital terrestrial box. Right, where's a 10? There's a 10. Let's have that off there. And this is, also, this is mainly what I do with if I want capacitors for just an old radio, an old transistor radio I want to fiddle with. This is generally what I do. I'll just take some scrap boards to, a bit like Shango does on his Resurrections. So obviously if I was restoring the radio, we'd be using new components. But this isn't really restoring it, it's just getting it into a playable, workable condition. And if we was restoring this radio, we'd change all these capacitors out. We would change out the Hunt's mold seal capacitors. We'd really check the volume control, make sure that's thoroughly cleaned. Same with the tuning condenser. We'd realign the settlement with a signal generator. We'd check all the tolerance of all the resistors. We'd change any that were out of spec. We're not doing any of this on this. We're literally just changing enough components so we can get the radio to play reasonably well. Okay. Just add a little bit of solder to those like that. There we go. So that's all those suspect capacitors changed. What I'm going to do, we'll get some Service-All Super 10. I've just realised I need a new straw because there's a split in my straw. Because that more shot out the side of the straw than actually hit the. Yeah, I've got a hole in the side of my straw. Bugger. We'll give the wave change switch a quick shot of that and work it up and down. We'll see if we can clean the volume control, although that looks like it may be tricky. We'll give it a... see if we can get some in it up there. We'll work that backwards and forwards a few times. Okay. In fact, what I'm going to do, have I got enough crock leads to do this? I wonder if we can just lash this up to the tuning condenser in there and just see if we can run it actually on the bench here. In fact, I'll just see if I can find a couple of bits of wire and stuff, and we'll get this hooked up like that, and we'll see if we can actually get it to play on the bench, and then we can have a look at reassembling it and see if we can get it back into a decently working radio. So back in a sec. Okay folks, unfortunately I couldn't find any clip leads, but what I've done basically is I've just used a bit of hookup wire, and I've connected onto the tuning condenser there, and I've just connected it up to the points it needs to go on the actual radio. Now this isn't going to sound very good like this, for the simple fact that we've got, you know, these should be as short as possible, and we've got big long wires which are going to radiate, but it should do. We should still be able to pull in more stations than like the 2 stations that we was pulling in previously if we've made a difference, and then we can actually put the radio back together properly and we'll give it a proper test. But for now, let's which wire is it? That wire there. Let's connect that back on onto there. Okay. There's considerably more stations.
There's all those people from the modern fable or fairy tale. So the story is
we've got a lot more stations. Just turn that down. We've got a lot more stations than we was getting before. Like I say, it's not going to work properly because of this lash up here. But what I'll do now, I won't bother filming it, but I'll put this actually back together, so and put it back in the cabinet, and we'll so I can solder these back. And it will take me a while to do because it's going to be as fiddly as hell to do. But so I'll resolder all this back to the actual tuning condenser, get the actual radio chassis back in the cabinet, and then we can actually see whether we have really made a difference on this. If you remember, like I said, when we started, we were just picking up 2 stations weekly. All we've done is change some of the electrolytic capacitors. We've not changed the transistor, we've not changed the resistor, we've not changed any of the old Hunt's mold seal capacitors. All we've changed are all the high ESR electrolytic capacitors, and we've not even used new ones to put in. We've just put capacitors off a scrap board that we've tested with the meter. It is a good way to show that actually, you know, you don't need a capacitor tester to work on these old transistor and valve radio equipment. You can get away with just using an analog meter like this, and basically doing as I've shown you there. You can see a bad ESR capacitor compared with one that's okay. Anyway, like I said, I'll pause the video, I'll just get this back in the cabinet, and we can have a quick final look and a listen to it. So, back in a sec. Okay folks, we're back, and oh boy, it's probably took me about 45 minutes to get that radio back together, and I have to confess, I broke the wave change switch. I was fiddling and faffing, and you saw how little and fiddly that wave change switch was. It basically, it fell apart. It just come apart. So what I've done is I've wired it to medium wave and just soldered it place. This radio's only going to ever play on medium wave anyway. But if we switch on,
Bud Spencer and Terence Hill comedies that remain popular in Europe today.
Oh, have I got a point there? If you can have a really good Christmas...
you were picking one.
And then, but yeah.
With plenty of volume. It didn't even sound bad.
It's like a scene out of the Terence Hill Bud Spencer.
I said far around here, which we're in a...
That is the Sheriff and the Satellite.
£35 division in the world right
We are in a really bad AM reception area where I live.
ringside for Devon.
This is actually doing quite well. Don't sound bad.
Thoughtful Thea. And he's got a gift for all his...
You can see, like I said, we're only picking up
friends.
2 stations on medium wave, and now we've got quite a selection on the band now.
Get pumped with the
It's got a lot more volume.
Christmas deals. Ends 23rd of December.
So obviously it still need work. I haven't restored this radio. We've just done enough work.
It's very nice to see the two men
Let's tighten that up. So we've
broadcast.
literally done enough work to get it to play reliably on medium wave.
Failed me. So, well, a little tipsy at dinner in Musa. All you do, that's from Mark. So, does that
COVID.
Our best ever. This season, Union makes some boost.
They're quite not bad at all. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now. A little bit of miffed about that wave change switch, but what it was, as you saw, it was a right... Basically, we can't take this radio apart the way we really should want to. These radios were never really designed to be seriously serviced. You can tell by the construction. Like I said, we've got all cardboard for the cabinet with just like a leather cloth over it. But the main problem being, to get the chassis out like that, really, the best thing to do is to take the front plastic off there, unscrew the tuning condenser and take the tuning condenser out with the rest of the radio. The problem is, to get that out, you've got to take those screws out, lift that board out, then take some plastic clips out to get that front panel out. You will break them clips off getting them out. That's why I've only done what I've really done with it. I left the tuning condenser in the actual cabinet and disconnected it from its wires, pulled it out. It was when I was trying to get that back in. I've managed to get that connection up there done. I was faffing around trying to get one of the connections down there done. It strained on it, and I said that wave change switch was it was flaky as it was. It never latched very well. It just fell apart. So all I did is, like I say, I worked out what the connections were for medium wave, and I just soldered the connections in position, so it's permanently set to medium wave, this radio now. But like I said, there's only a couple of stations on long wave that are really worth listening to, and quite frankly, I don't listen to the BBC anymore. Not since the last couple of years, so I don't listen to Radio 4 on medium wave, on long wave anymore, which basically leaves us RTE Radio 1 from Ireland as basically the only thing that's really worth listening to on long wave. Anyway, so we've got the radio basically playing really quite nicely. I'll stick a 9-volt battery in it, and I'll have this playing while I'm working on the new studio space. And all it's taken, 1, 2, 3. That's all we've changed in the radio, is them 4 electrolytic capacitors there. And I'll just show you now, just a quick final thing. This is how we've got a basic analog multimeter here. It's set on the resistance range. It's actually set on the 1K resistance range. So if we chart them out, so it's not very accurate, this meter, but it doesn't have to be for this. We can see with the lead shorted out, that's a short circuit on the range that we're on there. I do need to fiddle with this meter because it is quite out of calibration. Oh, hang on a minute. There we go. That's better. Keep forgetting it's got an ohms adjust to adjust out the leads. We should have done that before we started. Anyway, so we've got one of the old capacitors here. That's the 160. Oh, that's the other thing I had to do as well. When I was trying to put the bloody radio back together, I realised that that capacitor that we fitted was too big, so I had to have a fertile around, and I found I think it was a 180 or something like that at 10 volts. So I've stuck that in there instead. But so we've got that 160 there, and we'll connect it onto the meter, so like that. We'll watch it, it'll fly right up to basically infinite resistance, and then it'll start dropping down. In fact, that's starting to go back up now. Basically, on a good capacitor, once it's charged, that should be reading pretty much nothing. It should be reading, you know, like over 1K. It should be reading pretty much infinity, and as you can see, it's come right down. We'll take another one, and that's the positive on that side. That's the ground there. We see it charge up, we see it dropping down. But we're there, we're at 100 ohms. And that's basically the ESR on the capacitor. In fact, I've got one here. I think this is one of the ones I've just pulled out of that. Yes, it is. This is one of them 470s I pulled out of that Philips music player that Andy gave me, that I'm fiddling about with. So let's see what this one does. And again, it's doing the same thing. And we can see again. Yeah, it's fairly leaky, that capacitor. We'll get a good capacitor. We've got that 220 that I pulled out. That should do as a test, because we know this is a good capacitor. We'll connect that up so it fly right up. We'll leave that going. Anyway, you get the idea. Basically, that's going to, over time, because it's quite a large capacitor, it'll take a while, but basically that will drop right down to... Oops, sorry about that. Battery went flat. Anyway, so you've seen how I've used this meter to show up bad and high ESR electrolytic capacitors. Obviously, you wouldn't do that if you're working on vintage computer stuff or modern stuff or anything, but if you're working on old radios, even old transistor radios, but old valve radios, it's just an easy way to show, if you haven't got a capacitance tester, how you can actually check these electrolytics for high ESR just using your analog multimeter like that. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now. So this was just a bit of an interim video. Hopefully we'll do some more work on the new studio. I've got some computer projects in the pipeline. My Amiga 600 is having some issues. I want to do a video and tackle the issues I'm having with that, but I don't know whether I want to do it in this tiny little space or I want to wait for them projects until I've got the new studio space. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now. I hope you enjoyed this little rambly, ranty video. So, thanks for watching and goodbye.